In the red dust outskirts of Quarry Bend, a grieving travel writer named Nora Calloway was about to test a town's patience and a family's lie. What started as an evening walk around her newly inherited ranch took a shocking turn when she came face to face with a tar-sealed storm cellar no neighbor had opened in 50 years. Nora Calloway wasn't your typical travel writer. For a decade, she'd chased hard truths as an investigative journalist, known for a knife-sharp skepticism and the kind of quiet resilience that survives after love is taken by accident. When she encountered a lone coyote standing in the wash, watching and then melting into mesquite, she had no idea she was walking into danger. Nora pressed her palm to the warm padlock, pocketed her bolt cutters, and made a promise that would lead to a collision with a reclusive ranching clan, a split sheriff's office, and the unearthing of a Cold War experiment the desert failed to keep. What began as a fresh start in a sun-blasted ranch house would become a descent into sealed corridors and collective guilt. The tight-lipped community of Quarry Bend would never be the same after a hatch opened, a ledger surfaced, and the silence finally broke. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The road to Quarry Bend looks like someone took a pencil to a blank map and forgot to press hard. A sunburned sign leans into the wind, Quarry Bend, pop, 382, then squints at my dust trail as if the number might change depending on who's driving in. Dusk pours itself over the mesas. The air tastes like warm pennies and juniper. I tell myself this is a fresh start. People say that when they don't have another plan, the ranch shows up by degrees, a sagging corral strung with sun-bleached flagging tape, a satellite dish half drowned in a ripple of sand, a porch that remembers feet. My name, Nora Calloway, has been on a lot of mailboxes in a lot of cities, but this one was written into a deed by a great-aunt I barely knew, the sort of relative who sent Christmas cards in looping cursive and then died without warning, leaving me a house the desert had kept like a poker face. I park beside a wind vane shaped like a coyote that refuses to turn. When I kill the engine, the silence lands. Not the kind that's empty, the kind that's listening. The front door sticks, then gives. Inside, a kitchen that's been swept recently enough to make me suspicious. A farmhouse table wiped clean. A radio plugged in, mute, as if waiting for the right password. The light from my phone skims over clean plates stacked in the cabinet. A roll of paper towels with precisely 3 sheets missing. A grocery list written in someone else's hand. Flour, oil, matches. No dates, nothing to anchor it except the fact that the trash can smells faintly of bleach. Heard you were coming, I tell the empty room, and set my boxes down. They look small and cityfied in this space. Notebooks, camera, a wrapped bundle that's just a skillet, the lockbox with my late fiancé's press badge. The badge still flashes the same way a knife flashes when you open the drawer wrong. Fresh start, I remind myself. Different story. Same protagonist, unfortunately. Out back, the yard slopes to a concrete rectangle with a steel hatch in the center. The padlock is thick and new, tar brushed along the edges like someone sealed a cut shut. I crouch. The tar gives off a sweet chemical breath in the heat that lingers even after sunset. I touch the padlock. It's warm. The metal holds print scars I don't recognize. The rumor came with the deed, sealed in a bland legal envelope. There's an old storm cellar no one opens. 50 years nobody opens it. Not because of ghosts, Quarry Bend isn't the white sheet type, but because the cellar belongs to the town's collective memory the way a scar belongs to a body. You don't get rid of it. You cover it. You pretend long sleeves are a style choice. I tell myself I came here for quiet, not for locked doors. I tell myself a lot of things. Something shifts at the edge of the wash. A coyote pauses, foxlight, a tide of ribs under its coat. It watches me like a librarian who already knows how my story ends. Then melts into the mesquite. The house smells faintly of lemon oil and something under that, old dust. Yes, but not the woolly, stale kind that grows in true abandonment. This is curated neglect. Nothing alive, nothing spoiled, A place kept ready. In the pantry, behind a row of mason jars empty as stairs, I find a note taped just inside the door, written on lined paper that has softened at the fold. Block letters. No signature. Don't open what keeps us safe. I read it twice. I am the kind of person who writes notes like this down in a reporter's notebook with the date and time. I don't. I tuck it into the back pocket of my jeans and feel it there like a small, specific stone. Safe from what? The radio snaps on. 2 seconds of throat-clearing static and a single weather alert tone, that long needle of sound that slices through the room, and then silence. I cross the kitchen in 3 steps, twist the dial, get nothing but my face reflected in the dull chrome. My heart goes quick, then embarrassed of itself, then quiet again. Outside, a pickup idles on the ridgeline, blue headlights soft through the heat shimmer. Whoever it is doesn't drive down. They sit there, engine a cat purr. I could raise a hand and wave, but the distance feels built on purpose. After a minute, the truck noses backward and drifts away. The ridge goes back to its impersonation of a horizon. You got fans, I tell the hatch. The hatch says nothing. Back inside, I unpack the practicals, sheets, a coil of paracord, a pry bar, bolt cutters. I put the bolt cutters on the bedroom floor next to the bed like a polite promise. I'm not a superstitious person. I'm a skeptic with good instincts and a temper that shows up wearing logic. I also once waited too long to open a different door, and a man I loved died on a road that wasn't an accident. This is not that story, I decide. This is a woman in a house with a hatch and a town that thinks keeping quiet counts as kindness. I test the faucets, listen to pipes cough themselves into a thin stream, and decide the water's drinkable. The fridge hums and stays cool. Inside, the only thing is a jar of pickles I throw out on principle. I make a sandwich that tastes like relocation and sit on the back steps with my boots on and the hatch squarely in front of me. The desert is a strict teacher. Everything that lives here has a reason for it. The wind moves in long, disciplined strokes. The last heat rises off the yard like breath leaving an animal's body. Stars start where the sand stops. I take stock the way you do when a place wants to be read. There's sanding dust in the floorboard seams, not from decades but from weeks. The porch has a fresh screw replacing an old nail. Someone had the decency to wipe the dead bugs off the windowsill. I'm being welcomed in the town's version of the word. It feels like being handed a covered dish and told very clearly not to lift the foil. There are no family photos hanging, no heirloom quilts, no clutter thick enough to trip memory. The house has a professional cleanness that makes me think of vacated rooms on the last day of a stakeout. When I finally let sleep come, it's with the window cracked and the bolt cutters shaded against the nightstand. Coyotes yip somewhere beyond the wash, short, honest laughter. I want to tell them I get the joke. Before I turn off the light, I do one more loop. Habit, locks, windows, the radio dial just to be petty. In the front room, a slant of moon shows a thin trail of tracked sand near the door, like someone wiped their boots before coming in and missed a bit. The tracks lead nowhere, end in a square of clean floor. I press my palm to the wood and feel, not warmth exactly, but a temperature that remembers being touched. Fresh start, I tell the ceiling. Tomorrow I'm neighborly. Pie, handshakes, the smile that says I won't make trouble. Then the lock. The house answers by settling, one nail shifting, one board sighing. It sounds like someone downstairs adjusting in their chair. Well kept, I think. Kept for what? By morning, the desert is a blank page glaring at mistakes. I drive into town behind a comb of dust and pull up at Maggie Holt's as if I've rehearsed it. Her porch faces the road like a front-row critic, wicker chairs bleached to bone, wind chimes made of brass keys that speak whenever the breath of the valley passes through. Maggie opens the screen door before I knock, which means she saw me pass the cottonwood 2 blocks back. She's small the way granite is small. What matters is density. Her grey hair is braided tight. Her eyes are the colour of the blue enamel mugs hanging from a nail by the door. "You're Nora," she says, "and it isn't a question." "I'm the one with the hatch," I answer. She almost smiles. "You're the one with the note." "Let me guess," I say. "You wrote it?" "No," she says, with the final little clink of the key chimes. But I could have. Come drink coffee and then leave the desert the way you found it. Inside smells like lemon cleaner and biscuit dough. The kitchen is small and stubborn. The stove an old gas model that clicks like a cricket. She pours coffee without asking how I take it, and I don't waste the goodwill by asking for sugar. We sit. The window over the sink is a picture frame for the horizon. My hatch is out there. A fact even from here. You grew up near the ranch? I ask. Lived a mile east? Well, water, sweet as choir singing. Maggie's gaze slides left past me, toward the fence line, where the Crane Ranch cuts a black seam across pale earth. My mother stitched quilts with your aunt. Not friends, exactly. Allies. My chest tightens against the word. Allies against what? Her mouth compresses into a seam. Time, she says, then relents. And men who thought time answered to them. Project Kestrel, I say, bluffing. If the word hits, she doesn't show it. I'm old, she says instead, and old folks talk in circles to keep from saying the straight thing. She reaches into a bread tin and brings out a stack of photographs wrapped in wax paper. Here, look at these instead of me. They are all sun. Men in hard hats squinting. Kids in Sunday clothes perched on the hood of a truck. A storm door with a padlock fat as a fist. In the bottom corner of one, scratched into a shovel handle, is a mark. A triangle inside a circle like a geometry problem with its teeth bared. What's this? I tap the symbol. Just a doodle boys carved when they got nervous. Maggie says too quickly. The screen door creaks again. Sheriff Arlen Tate fills it up. He removes his hat before he steps inside, which makes me like him against my better judgment. Tall, built like a former linebacker who learned to apologize with his eyes, he looks from me to Maggie and back like he's walked into a prayer he doesn't want to interrupt. Morning, Ms. Holt, he says. Ms. Calloway. The nod he gives me is respectful and hedged. I figured I'd save you a trip. You were going to stop by the office. I sip coffee to keep my mouth busy. Was I? Eventually, he says. We'd have had the same conversation. Might as well do it where the biscuits are. Maggie snorts and slides a plate his way. He doesn't take one. His left hand rests on the back of a chair, not quite casual, and I notice the pale band where a ring used to live. His eyes keep dipping to the photographs. You inherited the Calloway place, he says to me. Legit, recorded, no quarrel there. But we've had issues out near those old mine shafts. Unstable structures. Flooding after monsoon years. I'm asking you to be careful. Careful how, I say. Define your term. No digging, he says, and he doesn't blink. And specifically leave the cellar sealed. Spare us all some paperwork. Maggie's keys pinch at the wind outside. I can feel the conversation hardening like poured concrete. You speak like a man who knows what's under it. I speak like a man who's seen what happens when people underestimate the desert, Tate says. We lost a boy in '74, others before. The mines shut down sudden. If you poke the earth where it's already hurt, it collapses, same as a person. Your father worked those mines, Maggie says softly, and Tate's jaw goes iron. He did, he says, and he told me where not to put my feet. Your father also took the Crane boys hunting, Maggie adds, and now her gaze returns to the window, steady on that black fence line. Men choose their neighbors. They don't choose their guilt. Tate's sigh has weight. He looks at me. I know you're an investigative type, Miss Calloway. I read your work, back when you used your own name. He has the decency not to say my fiancé's name, or the word accident. This isn't a city story. It's our town's safety, is it? I ask, because safety and silence wear the same uniform around here. He gives me the look good men give when they wish they were better. I'm asking for patience. Give me a day to look at the property with you. To do it right. Maggie pushes the plate of biscuits this time, like a peace offering, and Tate accepts one he's not hungry for. He leaves with his hat in his hand and a card on the table. You call me if anyone comes around who doesn't. Belong, he says, giving the words pointedly more weight than they should have. After he's gone, the kitchen grows larger with the relief of it. Maggie's shoulders sag, then square. You'll go to the Cranes, she says. I was thinking about apple pie first, I answer. She doesn't smile. Silas will be polite. Reed will not. They'll tell you they're looking out for you. They're looking out for what's theirs. What's theirs? Whatever the desert didn't return, she says. I have something for you. She disappears down the hallway and returns with a small tin, the kind that used to hold buttons. Inside, more photographs and an old metal key, the kind you see in movies, a length of iron with a clover tip worn smooth by thumbs that needed reminding. It's tied with a strip of calico. The original cellar key, she says, not meeting my eyes. It's not for opening, it's for remembering who could. You've had it since? Since 74, she says. My brother and I helped pour that slab. We swore we'd keep people out. The word fractures. She swallows, continues. He didn't come home after. I kept the key so I wouldn't use it. Her fingers brush mine as she passes it over, and whatever heat lives inside my palm flares. Don't make me regret this. Thank you, I say, and mean it in every tense. We spend the afternoon walking Quarry Bend. People are hospitable in the way of towns that understand stranger as a seasonal position. Hands shake. Names arrive in a list I'll remember later. A church rummage sale spools across the fellowship. Hall. Children chase each other around a rusted siren tower that looks like a lighthouse that lost the ocean. The Miners' Memorial sits under a cottonwood, plaques dulled by sun. The metal shows extra drill holes, places where nameplates were once attached and are now conspicuously absent, like missing teeth someone pretends came out clean. What were the names? I ask. People we loved, Maggie says. I buy a glass eagle paperweight out of ceremonial goodwill, and am given change that smells like diesel. As we circle back to her porch, the wind presses its hand flat against the town, and all the chimes answer in tiny, overlapping yeses. Tomorrow, I say. Tomorrow, Maggie agrees. She looks past me and her eyes flash with something like fear layered over pride. Sunrise is kinder to hard places. Back at the ranch, dusk pulls the light down like a shade. I spread Maggie's photos across my kitchen table and flip through them in the tender way you handle proof. There's the storm door again, the hard hats, the shovel handle, and then I see it everywhere, the same symbol, a triangle inside a circle, notched into a tool, chalked onto a slab, stamped into the corner of a paper tacked to a post. The mark repeats like a chorus you miss until you hear it once and can't stop. The radio gives me a single breath of static and holds. Outside, the hatch keeps its own counsel. I slip the old key into my pocket and feel its weight pull against me like a tide. Gate first, I tell the dark. Then lock. The wind nods along the roofline. Somewhere past the wash, a fence wire sings. By morning, the desert is a blank page glaring at mistakes. I drive into town behind a comb of dust and pull up at Maggie Holt's as if I've rehearsed it. Her porch faces the road like a front row. Critic. Wicker chairs bleached to bone, wind chimes made of brass keys that speak whenever the breath of the valley passes through. Maggie opens the screen door before I knock, which means she saw me pass the cottonwood 2 blocks back. She's small, the way granite is small. What matters is density. Her grey hair is braided tight. Her eyes are the colour of the blue enamel mugs hanging from a nail by the door. You're Nora, she says. And it isn't a question. I'm the one with the hatch, I answer. She almost smiles. You're the one with the note. Let me guess, I say. You wrote it. No, she says, with a final little clink of the key chimes. But I could have. Come drink coffee, and then leave the desert the way you found it. Inside smells like lemon cleaner and biscuit dough. The kitchen is small and stubborn, the stove an old gas model that clicks like a cricket. She pours coffee without asking how I take it, and I don't waste the goodwill by asking for sugar. We sit. The window over the sink is a picture frame for the horizon. My hatch is out there, a fact even from here. You grew up near the ranch? I ask. Lived a mile east. Well, water sweet as choir singing. Maggie's gaze slides left, past me, toward the fence line where the Crane Ranch cuts a black seam across pale earth. My mother stitched quilts with your aunt. Not friends, exactly. Allies. My chest tightens against the word. Allies against what? Her mouth compresses into a seam. Time, she says, then relents. And men who thought time answered to them. Project Kestrel, I say, bluffing. If the word hits, she doesn't show it. I'm old, she says instead, and old folks talk in circles to keep from saying the straight thing. She reaches into a bread tin and brings out a stack of photographs wrapped in wax paper. Here, look at these instead of me. They are all sun, men in hard hats squinting, kids in Sunday clothes perched on the hood of a truck, a storm door with a padlock fat as a fist. In the bottom corner of one, scratched into a shovel handle, is a mark, a triangle inside a circle like a geometry problem with its teeth bared. What's this? I tap the symbol. Just a doodle boys carved when they got nervous, Maggie says too quickly. The screen door creaks again. Sheriff Arlen Tate fills it up. He removes his hat before he steps inside, which makes me like him against my better judgment. Tall, built like a former linebacker who learned to apologize with his eyes, he looks from me to Maggie, and back like he's walked into a prayer he doesn't want to interrupt. Morning, Miss Holt, he says. Miss Calloway. The nod he gives me is respectful and hedged. I figured I'd save you a trip. You were going to stop by the office. I sip coffee to keep my mouth busy. Was I? Eventually, he says. We'd have had the same conversation. Might as well do it where the biscuits are. Maggie snorts and slides a plate his way. He doesn't take one. His left hand rests on the back of a chair, not quite casual, and I notice the pale band where a ring used to live. His eyes keep dipping to the photographs. You inherited the Calloway place, he says to me. Legit, recorded, no quarrel there. But we've had issues out near those old mine shafts. Unstable structures, flooding after monsoon years. I'm asking you to be careful. Careful how, I say. Define your term. No digging, he says, and he doesn't blink. And specifically, leave the cellar sealed. Spare us all some paperwork. Maggie's keys pinch at the wind outside. I can feel the conversation hardening like poured concrete. You speak like a man who knows what's under it. I speak like a man who's seen what happens when people underestimate the desert, Tate says. We lost a boy in '74, others before. The mines shut down sudden. If you poke the earth where it's already hurt, it collapses, same as a person. Your father worked those mines, Maggie says softly, and Tate's jaw goes iron. He did, he says, and he told me where not to put my feet. Your father also took the Crane boys hunting, Maggie adds, and now her gaze returns to the window, steady on that black fence line. Men choose their neighbors. They don't choose their guilt. Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Tate's sigh has weight. He looks at me. I know you're an investigative type, Miss Calloway. I read your work, back when you used your own name. He has the decency not to say my fiancé's name or the word accident. This isn't a city story. It's our town's safety, is it? I ask. Because safety and silence wear the same uniform around here. He gives me the look good men give when they wish they were better. I'm asking for patience. Give me a day to look at the property with you. To do it right. Maggie pushes the plate of biscuits this time like a peace offering, and Tate accepts one he's not hungry for. He leaves with his hat in his hand and a card on the table. You call me if anyone comes around who doesn't belong, he says, giving the words pointedly more weight than they should have. After he's gone, the kitchen grows larger with the relief of it. Maggie's shoulders sag, then square. You'll go to the Cranes, she says. I was thinking about apple pie first, I answer. She doesn't smile. Silas will be polite. Reed will not. They'll tell you they're looking out for you. They're looking out for what's theirs. What's theirs? Whatever the desert didn't return, she says. I have something for you. She disappears down the hallway and returns with a small tin, the kind that used to hold buttons. Inside, more photographs and an old metal key, the kind you see in movies, a length of iron with a clover tip worn smooth by thumbs that needed reminding. It's tied with a strip of calico, the original cellar key, she says, not meeting my eyes. It's not for opening. It's for remembering who could. You've had it since 74, she says. My brother and I helped pour that slab. We swore we'd keep people out. The word fractures. She swallows, continues. He didn't come home after. I kept the key so I wouldn't use it. Her fingers brush mine as she passes it over, and whatever heat lives inside my palm flares. Don't make me regret this. Thank you, I say, and mean it in every tense. We spend the afternoon walking Quarry Bend. People are hospitable in the way of towns that understand stranger as a seasonal position. Hands shake. Names arrive in a list I'll remember later. A church rummage sale spools across the fellowship hall. Children chase each other around a rusted siren tower that looks like a lighthouse that lost the ocean. The miners' memorial sits under a cottonwood, plaques dulled by sun. The metal shows extra drill holes, places where nameplates were once attached and are now conspicuously absent. Like missing teeth, someone pretends came out clean. What were the names? I ask. People we loved, Maggie says. I buy a glass eagle paperweight out of ceremonial goodwill, and I'm given change that smells like diesel. As we circle back to her porch, the wind presses its hand flat against the town, and all the chimes answer in tiny, overlapping yeses. Tomorrow, I say. Tomorrow, Maggie agrees. She looks past me and her eyes flash with something like fear layered over pride. Sunrise is kinder to hard places. Back at the ranch, dusk pulls the light down like a shade. I spread Maggie's photos across my kitchen table and flip through them in the tender way you handle proof. There's the storm door again, the hard hats, the shovel handle. And then I see it everywhere, the same symbol. A triangle inside a circle, notched into a tool, chalked onto a slab, stamped into the corner of a paper tacked to a post. The mark repeats like a chorus you miss until you hear it once and can't stop. The radio gives me a single breath of static and holds. Outside the hatch keeps its own counsel. I slip the old key into my pocket and feel its weight pull against me like a tide. Gate first, I tell the dark. Then lock. The wind nods along the roofline. Somewhere past the wash, a fence wire sings. The Crane Ranch looks like it grew from the desert's resentment. A sprawl of rusted scrap metal and sun-pitted vehicles stretches behind a barbed wire fence. Windmill ticking like a metronome in the distance. I park beside a cattle gate, chained shut with a padlock that's been painted over too many times to still function. A figure stands waiting, tall, hat shading most of his face, one hand resting on a post. Silas Crane. His posture carries the quiet ownership of someone who doesn't need to announce himself. The air between us feels weighed, as if the wind itself holds its breath until he speaks. Miss Calloway, he says. Not a question. You made it. You were expecting me, he shrugs. In a place this small, people know when a stranger comes to call. You're staying up at the old Calloway spread. That's right, I say. Hell of a place, he continues, voice even. Bit of work, but solid bones. Wouldn't blame you if you wanted to sell it. I'd give you a fair price, save you some trouble. Generous of you, I say. But I'm not looking to sell, of course. His eyes narrow a fraction, polite smile never shifting. Just thought I'd ask before you got attached. Attached. The word tastes like warning. From behind the barn, another figure appears. Reed Crane, younger by a decade but twice as twitchy. His gaze jerks from me to the truck, to my hands, to the dust where my tires turned in. He wipes his palms on his jeans as though they're sweating guilt. You don't have any reason to go under there, he says abruptly. Silas shoots him a look sharp enough to slice air. Reed, he murmurs. What? She's thinking it, Reed snaps. His voice cracks, half fear, half anger. Everybody who moves in up there thinks they'll be the one to pry it open. It never ends well, I'm sorry, I say lightly. I wasn't aware it ended at all. Reed steps forward, but Silas stops him with just a glance. The exchange between them is silent but practiced. An old choreography. The yard is a museum of Cold War detritus, corrugated tin, patched over windows. Warning placards reading Fallout Shelter, hammered sideways into the siding. On an old generator I see it again. the triangle inside a circle, faint but deliberate. I run my finger across the mark. Silas watches. Interesting symbol, I say. Old mining company logo, he lies easily. Before my time, before most people's, I agree. He smiles then, thin, courteous. You'll find a lot of leftovers out here. Some best left where they lay. He disappears into the house and returns, holding a key on a leather cord. He lets it swing between us. Maggie Holt mentioned you might be looking for this. I hold out my hand, pulse steady, pretending indifference. He drops it into my palm. That's for the front gate, he says. Keep it. Makes life easier. I look down at it. A normal gate key, not the one I hoped for. A test. Appreciate it, I say. Good, he replies. You strike me as someone who doesn't like surprises. Depends on who's giving them. Silas's grin tightens at the edges. Out here, the ground gives them. You dig too far. It'll remind you whose land this is. Reed mutters something I can't catch, but the tone is pure warning. The kind of fear that's kept alive by repetition, not proof. When I start back toward the truck, Silas walks with me, hands in pockets, shadow long and precise. The sheriff's a good man, he says. Knows when to leave things be. You do well to follow his example. I didn't realize curiosity was a crime, I say. It's not, Silas says, eyes level with mine. But it's often a cause of death. He holds my gaze a second too long before tipping his hat. I climb into my truck, start the engine, and drive away slow enough to feel their eyes follow me. By the time I reach the turnoff toward my ranch, the sun's going down in layers of rust and bruised violet. The desert looks flayed open, beautiful, dangerous, unbothered. When I pull into the drive, something glints by the cellar. The hatch sits in the same dirt as before, but the padlock is different, newer, shiny brass instead of dull steel. No note this time. I kneel, press my thumb to the keyhole. The metal's warm again. Someone's been here. Someone who wants me to know they've been here. I glance toward the ridge. The windmill on the horizon ticks, counting time like a metronome for secrets. Line in the sand, I whisper. Got it. The desert doesn't answer, but the radio inside the kitchen hums once. Just a single breath of static, like a laugh caught in its throat. Tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow I stop asking permission. The desert holds its breath when you start meaning business. By twilight, the sky looks bruised and thin, as if someone had sanded it down to bone. I spend the afternoon pretending to unpack, but my focus keeps circling the same spot out back, the hatch. The new brass lock sits there like a dare. I eat a cold sandwich, wash it down with tap water that tastes faintly of iron, and wait for the sun to fall below the ridge. The house creaks when it cools, the kind of slow, bending sound that feels like language if you're tired enough. I check my phone, no signal, of course. Still, the camera works. That's the only tool I trust. When the last light goes, I pull on gloves and grab the bolt cutters. The handles are cold in my palms, even though the air is still thick from the day. I step off the porch, the desert gravel crunching like bones underfoot. Somewhere beyond the wash, a nightbird calls once, short and low, then nothing. The lock's brass body gleams against the tar-sealed edge of the hatch. Whoever replaced it wanted me to see it. New, deliberate, final. I crouch, testing the hinge, tracing the seams where old concrete meets new sealant. Someone brushed fresh tar around the perimeter. It's tacky, like they'd done it recently, maybe last night. I lift the cutters and line them against the shackle. My hands shake a little, not from fear, but from something hungrier. The metal groans, resists, then gives with a clean snap. The sound carries thin but certain into the desert night. For a long breath, I don't move. I wait for headlights to crest the ridge again, for a voice to call out. Nothing comes. The only reply is wind fingering the grass. I pull the tar with a pry bar, chipping the hardened edges until the seal cracks. The hatch groans, stubborn, then exhales a puff of stale, cold air that smells like rust, dust, and old stone, like a breath that's been waiting 50 years to leave a body. I swing it open. The hinges shriek. The ladder descends into dark. A flashlight beam cuts a narrow column, revealing a shaft of concrete, narrow but solid, the kind built by men who expected it to last. Stenciled numbers mark the wall, A1. The air down there feels cooler, not dead, but contained, like a basement that remembers people. I start down. Each rung leaves grit on my palms. The sound of my boots echoes back too fast, like the space below is smaller than it should be. The flashlight beam slides across a corridor, barely wide enough for two shoulders. Dust ripples in the air. At the bottom, the floor levels out. Concrete corridor. Bare bulbs overhead, shattered or burned out, leaving only my flashlight's cone of light to show me the way. The walls are stenciled again, A1, A2, arrows painted in flaking red. A breaker box hangs open, its wires cut, a brittle nest. My light catches something on the floor, an old box of potassium iodide tablets, label faded to ghosts. A Cold War relic. Nearby, a clipboard with paper too brittle to read. The ink has run like spilled wine. I step forward. The corridor ends at a heavy steel locker built into the wall, the door welded shut. Its surface bears the same symbol I've seen again and again, the triangle inside a circle, etched deep, not decorative. Beneath it, someone has carved a single word into the metal, kestrel. I don't breathe for a second. The word stirs something. I've seen it before, in redacted files back when I still worked investigations. A defunct civil defense project, vaguely referenced in declassified documents tied to Cold War testing out west. Nothing public. Nothing confirmed. I touch the weld seam. The metal's cold enough to bite through my glove. A small hum echoes inside the locker, or maybe it's just air shifting. I angle my flashlight, and something white catches light behind a conduit pipe, a corner of cloth. I reach for it. A small linen-wrapped bundle tied with string, hardened to dust. I untie it carefully. Inside a notebook, its cover cracked and grey. The initials EC faintly pressed into the corner. I flip it open. The handwriting is dense, technical, almost obsessive. Notes on tolerance variables, oxygen saturation, subject stability under hypoxic conditions. Then the tone shifts. Paragraphs about guilt, doubt, the cost of silence. One line jumps out, jagged and desperate. They said the desert would hide it. But the earth remembers everything. I close the book before I can start shaking. My fingers trace the initials again. Eli Crane. Somewhere above me, a faint vibration runs through the air. Tires on gravel. I kill my flashlight. The darkness presses close, familiar and absolute. The vibration stops. Silence again. After a long minute, I climb. My boots scrape against the ladder rungs, the sound too loud in the quiet. When I push the hatch open, cool night air rushes over me like a reprieve. I pull myself out, sit on the edge, breathing fast, trying not to look like someone who just found the hinge of someone else's secret. The radio inside the house pings once, just a brief spark of static, as if something listening had heard me come back. Headlights sweep across the far fence line. A vehicle sits idling, a cruiser, black and white, engine running low. A figure leans against the driver's door. And near the holster, Deputy Carla Monroe. Her voice cuts across the dark. "You need to come with me, Miss Calloway." I stand, brushing the dust off my jeans, tucking the linen notebook under my arm. "What's the charge?" She tilts her head, half smirk, half warning. "Let's call it a safety concern." Her eyes flick to the open hatch, then back to me. The look says she knows exactly what I found, or what I'm about to find. Behind her, the desert stays perfectly still. No wind, no sound. Even the stars seem to pause, waiting to see which one of us moves first. The sheriff's office sits across from a diner that sells both propane and pie. Always a promising combination, if you like irony. The sign out front reads Tate and Monroe, Sheriff's Department. Though the ampersand feels more ceremonial than real, inside, the air is dry with the scent of coffee that's been sitting on a hot plate since Reagan. Fluorescent lights hum like a nervous tick. The waiting area is furnished with 2 cracked leather chairs and a shelf of outdated travel magazines, a touch I take personally. Deputy Carla Monroe gestures me toward one of the chairs opposite Sheriff Tate's desk. She's all crisp lines and confidence, tan uniform pressed sharp enough to slice, hair coiled in a severe knot. Her badge glints whenever she moves like it's catching invisible lightning. "Miss Calloway," Tate says, leaning back. His tone is polite, too polite, as though words might keep something heavier from slipping loose. "We need to talk about what you were doing out at the property last night." "I was home," I say. "Unless the county's enforcing bedtime now." Carla's smile is thin. "We both know that's not all you were doing." I meet her eyes. "You've been watching the house?" Her expression doesn't flicker. "Routine patrol. We check on new residents, especially ones who buy cursed real estate," I say. Tate sighs and removes his hat, setting it on the desk. "You cut through that lock. The cellar's sealed for a reason. Liability, safety. You could have gotten hurt." "I'm touched by the concern," I reply. "But if safety was the goal, you might consider not replacing the lock every time someone looks at it too long." Carla folds her arms. "You're new here, Ms. Calloway. You don't understand how this community works. People like their peace, and people like their secrets," I say. "But one usually costs the other." Her lips twitch, the ghost of a smirk she tries to kill. "I read about you," she says. "That corporate expose 5 years ago, big story. You pushed too far, didn't you? Lost someone close because of it." The room goes colder. "That's not in the public record," I say quietly. Carla shrugs. "Small towns have long memories. We do our homework." I lean forward, elbows on knees. "Then you know I don't scare easy." Tate cuts in before the temperature can drop further. "Enough, Carla." He waits until she leans back, still smug but silent. Then he turns to me, lowering his voice. "Nora, listen. That cellar connects to old mine tunnels, collapsed shafts, unstable walls. I've seen people die down there. This isn't a threat. It's fact. Then why keep it locked and tarred instead of filled in?" I ask. He hesitates. That pause tells me everything. "Because," he says finally, "there are things buried best left untouched." "Like what?" "Like history," he says. "History doesn't kill people, Sheriff." He meets my eyes. "You'd be surprised. The silence that follows is thick enough to wade through." I reach into my jacket and pull out the linen-wrapped notebook, setting it gently on the desk between us. "This was under there," I say. "You can tell me if it's yours." Carla leans forward before Tate can move. "What is that?" I flip it open. Technical drawings, equations, diagrams, labeled Hypoxia Trials, Series 4B. Then handwriting, dense, frantic, haunted. Tate stares at the pages like they're glowing. His face drains of color. "Where did you get this?" "You already know." He turns one of the pages with care, reading a line aloud. "Controlled exposure in Chamber A2. Subjects unresponsive. Supervisor requests further testing." His voice cracks on subjects. He closes the book as though it burns. Carla's gaze darts between us. "What is it?" "Project Kestrel," Tate says softly. "Civil defense program. Cold War contract between government and a private company. Locals were hired as miners and volunteers. My father was one of them." "Volunteers?" I echo. "That's what they called them." "But nobody volunteered." Carla's eyes narrow. "That's ancient history. You can't prove anything from a notebook. It's more proof than anyone's had in 50 years, I say. And your Cranes seem awfully determined to make sure nobody looks under their feet." At the mention of the name, Tate's jaw sets. "Silas and Reed Crane inherited what was left after the mine closed. They've always been protective of the land." "Protective," I repeat. "Or complicit." And Carla exhales sharply, pushing from her chair. "Okay, I think this conversation's over." "Not yet," Tate says, still staring at the notebook. "We'll do this by the book. I'll go out there with you tomorrow, sunrise. We'll document the site properly." "You're serious?" Carla asks. He looks up, his eyes suddenly older. "I've been serious for years. Just not brave enough." She laughs, low and dry. "You're risking your badge." "Maybe," he says. "But we owe the dead at least that much." I nod once. "Tomorrow, then," he nods back. "Tomorrow!" Carla watches us both, expression unreadable. Her hand lingers near the notebook, like she wants to take it but doesn't dare. Outside, the sun is a hard coin dropping behind the ridges. I walk out without waiting for permission, the door slamming behind me. Across the street, a familiar truck sits angled by the curb, Silas Crane's dust caked up to the windows. He's not inside, or at least not visible. The windshield reflects the sky too perfectly. I stand there a moment, the weight of the desert pressing at my back. A fly buzzes around my ear. I swat it away and keep walking. By the time I reach the ranch, the wind has picked up, shaking the corral fencing and scattering dry sage. Inside, I light a single lamp and spread the notebook across the table. Each page reads like a confession that never found a priest. One entry ends with a phrase underlined twice. They told us silence was safety. But it only buries the bodies deeper. I read until my eyes sting, until the lamp's glow turns gold at the edges. Somewhere outside, a footstep crunches the gravel. I kill the light. Through the window, moonlight paints the yard in bone white. Nothing moves. Then my phone screen lights up by itself. Video playback. The footage from the cellar, frame by frame. Only this time the timestamp stutters. Frame A2 flickers. The light in the image pulses once, bright, as if something unseen had turned its head toward the camera, then black. Somewhere in the distance, a single coyote yips, and the sound feels less like a call than a warning. Tomorrow, I think sunrise, Tate, the cellar, and whatever waits under A2. But tonight, I keep the notebook on my chest like armor and try not to dream of locked doors. By sunrise, the desert smells like dust and apology. The wind's low hum against the window makes the glass vibrate in its frame. A reminder that out here, nothing stands still for long, not even silence. I leave early. Notebook zipped into my bag, the key Maggie gave me heavy in my pocket. The drive into town feels longer than yesterday, maybe because now I'm starting to see what the landscape's been hiding, its scars. The old mine road veers off the highway like a vein gone dry, winding toward Quarry Bend's faded heart. Maggie Holt's porch waits the way old people wait for news they already suspect. She's outside in her chair, a mug of something steaming between her hands, brass key chimes jangling a nervous melody in the wind. When I step up, she doesn't greet me. She just studies my face. "You opened it," she says flatly. I nod. Part of it, her eyes shutter, the way a storm shutters light. "And you live to tell about it." Damn fool or blessed one, I'm not sure which. Depends on who's writing the story. I sit beside her. "I need answers, Maggie, real ones. No more riddles." Her mouth thins, but she reaches for a tin beside her chair, the same one that once held buttons, the one she'd given me before. She opens it, digs past the photographs, and pulls out the key again, the calico strip frayed at the ends. "I told myself I'd never hand this to anyone," she says. "But I didn't count on a Calloway being stubborn enough to come looking. You said you poured the slab," I remind her. "I did. Me, my brother, 2 other boys from town. We thought it was just another storm shelter, maybe part of a civil defense contract. The government paid cash. Easy money, they said. My brother was good with his hands. Eli Crane trained him a bit, taught him wiring, measurements. The day after the last pour, Eli went missing. My brother went back to check the site." She swallows. "He didn't come home either. Eli Crane," I say, opening the notebook enough for her to see the initials. "He didn't die by accident." "No," she says, eyes narrowing. "But saying that out loud used to buy you a visit from someone with a badge and no conscience, like Tate." "No." Her head shakes sharply. "Arlen's not like them. He's his father's son, though. And his father took the hush money like the rest." I sit back. "Hush money?" Maggie nods. "After the mines closed in '74, a bunch of folks got quiet checks from a reclamation fund. No paperwork. Just cash. Sheriff Tate's father, the Crane's father, even the preacher's wife, said it was compensation for the flooding. But it wasn't flooding that shut the mines. It was what they found down there. What did they find?" She looks at me then, straight on, and the years between us fold up like paper. "Not what. Who?" The words hang in the air long enough for the wind to turn mean. "The Crane's grandfather worked for the same contractor as Eli," Maggie continues. "When people started disappearing, he took over managing the site. Whatever was happening down there, tests, experiments, whatever name they put on it, it was his job to keep it contained. The Cranes have been guarding that secret ever since." The brass keys above us jangle, as if agreeing. I tell her about the locker in the cellar, the symbol etched into steel, the word kestrel. She listens without blinking, as if she's been waiting years for someone else to say it out loud. "Kestrel," she murmurs. That word kept showing up in the old town papers. Disguised in classifieds mostly. Code talk for something government owned. The mine payroll ledgers had redacted names. One was Crane, one was Tate's father, and another just listed as EC. Eli Crane, I say. Maggie nods slowly. The boy who tried to stop it. My brother used to call him a hero. I thought he meant for building the shelter. Now I know better. We sit quiet for a while. A delivery truck rattles past, heading toward the diner. Life here moves on, just quieter. The silence of a town that's learned forgetting is easier than explaining. I finally stand. Maggie, you said you had the real key. Why now? She looks at the horizon. Because I'm too old to keep ghosts company. If the truth kills us, so be it. At least it'll be honest. She presses the key into my palm. It opens the hatch proper. What you cut through was just the padlock they added later. I slip it into my pocket. Tomorrow morning, I say. Tate's meeting me at sunrise. We go down together. No more secrets. Maggie's jaw works as if chewing back fear. You trust him? I don't know, I admit. But I trust what's written more than what's spoken. I tap my bag, where Eli's notebook rests. When I leave her porch, the town looks almost normal. A church bell rings noon. 2 kids race bikes past the feed store. But when I walk by the miners' memorial beneath the cottonwood, I notice something new. The plaques aren't just faded. They've been tampered with. The bolts securing them are mismatched, as if someone removed and reattached them recently. On one, faint outlines of lettering remain where a plate once was. C.R. Ain. I kneel and trace it with my thumb. A shiver moves through me that has nothing to do with wind. Behind me, soft paws crunch gravel. I turn and there's a dog, a rangy cattle mix, white face, one ear torn. He tilts his head, tongue lolling. No collar, no tag. He studies me like I'm trespassing on his territory, then wags once, slow and deliberate. Hey, stranger, I say, crouching. You lost? He just watches, tail flicking dust. When I stand to go, he follows, padding a few paces behind. Not close enough to touch, not far enough to lose. By the time I reach my truck, he's sitting by the tire, waiting. Fine, I tell him, but no backseat chewing. He hops in like he's been invited all along. We drive home in silence, the sun dropping into a copper haze. I catch him watching the window reflection of the desert the whole way, ears pricked, alert, as if he hears something I can't. Back at the ranch, the wind's rising. Sand rattles against the windows, dry rain that doesn't fall. I pour a bowl of water, set it on the porch, and watch him drink, slow and methodical, before curling under the steps. Inside, the house feels different. The radio still sits dead on the counter, but the air has shifted, warmer, expectant. I lay Maggie's key beside Eli's notebook on the table and watch the two glint together in the lamplight. Outside, thunder rolls over the ridge, distant but definite. The kind of storm that brings flash floods and truth in equal measure. I text Tate, sunrise. We go in. His reply comes faster than I expect. Understood. Be ready. I close my phone and stare out the window, where lightning forks along the horizon like a signature scrawled across the desert sky. The cattle dog lifts his head. Ears pricking again, a low rumble in his throat, not fear, but recognition. Yeah, I whisper. Me too. The desert exhales, and for the first time it sounds like relief. By dawn, the sky has the bruised look of an old confession. Thin gold light spills over the horizon, catching the edge of the windmill by the corral and turning it into a slow, deliberate metronome. The cattle dog, still nameless, waits on the porch like a sentry. I scratch behind his ear, half out of gratitude, half out of nerves. You can guard the house, I tell him. He yawns, unimpressed. Sheriff Arlen Tate's truck rumbles up the dirt road, just as the first heat begins to rise from the sand. He steps out in plainclothes jeans and a weathered canvas jacket instead of the uniform. I catch the faint tremor in his hands as he adjusts his hat. You sleep? He asks. I read, I say. That's what I figured. We don't talk much as we move across the yard toward the cellar. The key Maggie gave me feels like a live wire in my palm, the metal warm despite the early chill. Tate carries a crowbar, a flashlight, and that air of quiet duty that men wear when they're already regretting what they're about to do. The hatch waits where I left it, the brass lock cut and tossed aside. I fit the old key into the secondary latch, one I hadn't noticed before, flush against the seam, and turn. The mechanism groans, reluctant like a throat that hasn't spoken in years. The hatch lifts easier than before. The air that rises out isn't stale this time. It's damp, metallic, threaded with something faintly electric. Tate shines his flashlight down. "We go together," he says. "I wasn't planning on waiting up here," I reply. We descend. The ladder's slick with condensation. The moment my boots hit the floor, I feel it. The hum, faint but steady, deep in the concrete, as if the structure itself has a heartbeat. The flashlight beam shakes slightly as Tate moves it along the walls. The same stenciled numbers appear, A1, A2. Someone scrawled faint chalk lines near the corner, symbols that look more like equations than warnings. "Breakers over there," Tate says. He flips a switch, and for the first time, a few of the emergency lights cough to life, sputtering in fits until a dim red glow fills the corridor. The walls sweat with moisture, shadows pooling in the corners like waiting shapes. We move forward. The steel locker still stands at the far end, its welded seams intact. The etched symbol, the triangle inside a circle, gleams under the red light, more distinct than before. Tate studies it. "My father told me this was a test site," he says quietly. "Government men came through with crates. Paid in cash, no paperwork. Said they were building emergency shelters in case the Soviets hit the silos. That was the cover story," I say. He nods once, eyes distant. "He mentioned the name Kestrel once. I thought it was just a code name, something harmless. Your father wasn't the only one," I say. "The Crane's grandfather helped build this. Maggie's brother poured the slab. Eli Crane supervised the wiring." At the mention of the name, Tate's expression changes, grief mixed with something heavier. "I remember that name," he says. "Dad used to talk about an engineer from Phoenix. Smart kid. Said he left after an accident in one of the shafts. He didn't leave. Tate doesn't ask how I know. He just exhales, heavy and slow. All right, he says. Let's open it." He wedges the crowbar under the seam and starts to pry. The weld cracks reluctantly, snapping in sparks that spit across the floor. My flashlight trembles as I hold it steady. It takes both of us working in rhythm, the sound echoing like hammer strikes in a cathedral. Finally the door gives, a long metallic shriek that makes my skin crawl. Inside, dust and the faint tang of mildew. Rows of film reels stacked in metal canisters. A ledger bound in cracked leather. Several personnel cards laminated and curling at the edges. And one envelope, sealed and labeled in trembling script, E.C. Eli Crane. I reach for it. The paper's brittle but intact. Tate opens the ledger beside me, scanning the first page. His face darkens. "Payroll," he says. "But there's no company name. Just numbers. And initials, E.C., H.T., R.C. That's Reed Crane." "Silas's father," I say. He flips another page. "My father's here too." We stand in silence, the weight of 50 years settling around us. The hum in the floor seems to grow louder, pulsing beneath the soles of our boots. Then I hear it, above us, faint but clear. The crunch of gravel. Tires rolling slow, Tate's head snaps up. "Someone's here!" We climb fast. Halfway up, dust filters down from the hatch, a drizzle of grit in the flashlight beam. Tate's hand finds the ladder rung above mine, ready to push the hatch open. But before he can, light slashes through the seam. A silhouette leans over the opening. Broad shoulders, hat brim low. Silas Crane. Behind him, another figure, thinner, restless. Reed. And at their flank, Deputy Carla Monroe, hand on her gun. Expression unreadable. Silas's voice drops through the gap like gravel. "Sheriff. You shouldn't be down there," Tate's jaw tightens. "You're trespassing on county property, Silas." "This isn't county land," Silas says. "Never was." "You know that." Reed's laugh is short, sharp. "You think you're gonna fix the past by crawling into it?" Carla moves forward, face set in that professional mask law enforcement wears when they're on the wrong side of morality. "I'm sorry, Tate," she says. "Orders are orders." She holds up a zip tie. Tate's eyes flash betrayal and disbelief. "Carla, step up slow," she interrupts. "Don't make this worse." I glance past them. Silas's truck idles nearby. The morning light glints off the shotgun propped against its hood. Reed paces like a man whose nerves are tuned too tight. "We found the ledger," I say loudly. "And the letter." "You can't bury this again." Reed spits into the dirt. "Watch us," Silas studies me. "You don't understand what's at stake, Ms. Calloway. That place isn't just history. It's a graveyard with rules. You dig too deep, you wake things best left under." I climb one rung higher, staring him down. "Truth doesn't rot, Silas. It waits." For a heartbeat, he almost looks sorry. Then his expression hardens. "Then you can wait with it." Reed steps forward, shoves Tate back down the ladder, and before I can react, slams the hatch shut. The sound is final, metallic, absolute. The bolt drops into place above us. Darkness floods the space. Tate's flashlight flickers, then steadies. We look at each other, the silence between us heavier than air. "They're sealing it," he says. "They won't," I answer, though I'm not sure. Tate swallows. "If they do, we make them regret it." The hum underfoot grows louder, deep enough to feel in bone. The earth vibrates like it's remembering something. I clutch the envelope labeled EC to my chest. "No," I whisper. We make them see it. Above us, footsteps fade. Then the sound of tires crunching away. The desert goes still again. The earth, refusing to keep what it's been forced to hold, trembles once, and then goes quiet. The air is going bad. You can feel it before you can measure it. The slow thickening, the way every breath starts to taste like the inside of a coin. Tate's flashlight throws a trembling circle over the concrete walls, catching water beading along seams like sweat. Somewhere above, sand trickles through a crack, a whispering rain. "They're not coming back," Tate says. His voice has lost its official weight. Now it's just a man's voice. I force my breath steady. And then we find our own way out. The emergency lights flicker, bleeding red across the walls. The sound of dripping water fills the pause. I pull the envelope labeled EC from my jacket, the paper soft with age. "If we die down here, someone should know what we found," I say. Tate nods. "Read it." The glue on the flap breaks easy. Inside, 4 folded pages, yellowed, each filled edge to edge in hurried ink. I start reading aloud, my voice shaking at first, then gaining strength. "If anyone finds this, I need you to understand. I tried to stop it. They said it was for national safety, for civil defense, but they were testing people, not equipment. The miners thought they were building bunkers. We were building graves. The air systems failed. The controls jammed. They called it tolerance under hypoxia, but what it meant was watching men suffocate for data points." I pause, throat dry. Tate looks away, jaw tight. I hid the reels, the payroll ledgers, proof that none of this was sanctioned. Grain Sr. promised to shut it down. He lied. When I confronted him, he locked me down here, said the desert keeps its own secrets. If this letter reaches daylight, it means the desert finally refused. The final paragraph is shaky, written as if by a dying hand. "Tell whoever comes after, they were never ghosts, only people the world chose to forget. Don't let them stay forgotten." Silence swells after I finish. The flashlight's beam dances over the letter's last line before flickering again. Tate sits heavily on the floor. "My father, he knew. He must have." "He did," I say softly. "And now you do." We search by the failing light, and Tate spots a vent, small, half-collapsed, barely wide enough for one of us. "Maintenance access," he says. "Leads toward the wash." We pry at the grating, hands raw until it comes loose. The air that drifts through smells faintly of dust and rain. Hope disguised as oxygen. Above us, faint voices, Carla's, sharp and urgent. Then Silas's, calm but breaking. I catch fragments, evidence, state agents too late. Tate grips my arm. "She's turning on them." Then we move now. We crawl into the vent, our lights stuttering, air thinning. The metal groans, echoing our breaths like confessions. Behind us, a new sound, liquid sloshing. Gasoline. Reed's voice carries, manic and hollow. "If it burns, it ends." Tate shoves me forward. "Go!" We crawl faster. The smell hits first, sharp, choking. Then a scrape of metal above, the hatch grinding open. A pause, and the faint sound of a match striking. I clutch Eli's letter tight. heart pounding so loud it could be the earth itself trying to speak. We burst from the maintenance vent like the earth finally spit us out. The dawn has burned into hard daylight, sand searing white beneath our boots. Tate collapses first, coughing up dust, his face streaked with grime and sweat. Behind us, the vent exhales smoke, a low, angry plume that curls skyward. The cattle dog's the first thing I see. He's barking from the ridge, frantic, bounding toward us. He reaches Tate, circles twice, then bolts back toward the house, barking louder. "Follow him!" I gasp. We run, stumbling across the wash. My lungs taste of metal and ash. Halfway up the rise, the heat shifts, the kind that doesn't come from sun. I turn. The hatch has erupted into fire. Reed Crane's truck sits beside it, driver's door open, flames climbing the tires. Reed's shape moves near the blaze, jerky, desperate, as if trying to pour the fire back into the can. Silas is shouting something I can't hear. Carla Monroe stands between them, gun drawn, voice cutting through the wind. "Put it down, Reed." The world tilts in that strange stillness before violence. Silas steps forward, empty hands raised. "Reed, it's over." "Let it go." Reed shakes his head, wild-eyed. "You don't understand, Silas. If they find what's left, we're all dead." He lights another bottle, flame licking the rag. Carla fires a warning shot. The glass slips from Reed's hand, hits gravel and bursts, but not where he meant it. The flames spill harmlessly across the ground, sputtering out against sand. Tate and I reach the clearing just as the wind shifts, driving smoke sideways. Silas lowers his arms, defeat carving new lines across his face. "It was supposed to stay buried," he murmurs. "Truth doesn't stay buried," I say. "It just waits for someone desperate enough to dig." Carla turns, her voice taut. "You have proof?" I hold up Eli Crane's letter. His name, his handwriting, the project ledgers. "Everything you need." Reed lunges toward me, but the cattle dog darts in, snarling, clamping onto his sleeve. Reed yells, tripping, tangled in his own fury. Tate steps in, disarming him with practiced force, the revolver clattering away into sand. Carla lifts her radio. "This is Deputy Monroe, Quarry Bend PD. I have a live situation tied to Project Kestrel. Requesting immediate state response." Repeat, Project Kestrel. "Confirm chain of custody." Her voice shakes but holds. The sound of static answers, then dispatch acknowledgement. Back up en route. The wind picks up again, carrying smoke toward the horizon where the sirens will soon rise. Maggie Holt's old pickup appears in the distance, dust trailing behind it. When she steps out, other townsfolk follow, a trickle of faces turning into a crowd. She looks at Silas, then at the smoldering hatch. "I told you, Silas," she says quietly. "The desert keeps everything, even shame." No one speaks. The dog presses against my leg, trembling. The first siren breaks the silence, echoing across the flats. Tate exhales, shoulders dropping, the sound half relief, half grief. I look down at the reels and letter in my hands. "This doesn't end here," I say. "It starts here." The desert wind answers with a long, low sigh, like a witness finally giving testimony. Weeks later, the desert feels almost gentle again. The wind no longer howls, it whispers. The heat still comes in waves, but it carries something cleaner now, as if the earth itself exhaled the poison it had been forced to hold. The sheriff's office smells like old paper and disinfectant. Chain of custody boxes line the wall, each stamped with state seals and barcodes. Project Kestrel, evidence hold, reads the bold type on every label. Tate stands at his desk, sleeves rolled, signing the last set of reports. "They're sending the boxes to Phoenix," he says without looking up. "Attorney General's team wants to digitize everything. The reels, too." "Good," I reply. "Sunlight's the best disinfectant." He gives a faint smile. "Still writing?" "Every day." He nods toward the notebook tucked under my arm. "You're turning it into something?" "Not a story," I say. "An archive." Maggie's idea. Outside, through the window, I can see her. Maggie Holt sits on a bench under the memorial's new plaques, freshly polished bronze gleaming in the sun. Names that were once erased now shine again. Eli Crane, Thomas Holt, Leonard Vance. The wind stirs her hair, but she looks peaceful for the first time since I met her. "They reopened the fund," Tate says. Families are finally getting compensation. It won't fix what was done, but it's something. He hesitates, setting his pen down. They suspended me for 3 weeks. Official reprimand for failure to disclose historical evidence. Could have been worse. Could have been ignored, I say. He chuckles softly, shaking his head. You know, for a woman who came out here looking for peace, you sure stirred up a hell of a storm. Peace was never about quiet, I tell him. It's about honesty. He looks at me for a long time. You think the town will forgive me? I glance outside again. Maggie waves to him from her bench. I think it already has. By afternoon, the town gathers for the ceremony, small, solemn, but alive. Carla Monroe stands beside the podium, no badge for now, just a simple white shirt. She reads Eli Crane's final words into the microphone, her voice steady. If the desert keeps anything, let it be witness. The crowd murmurs, heads bowed. Silas Crane stands off to the side, hands in pockets, eyes hollow, but calm. Reed's absence says everything. He's in treatment, awaiting trial. When it's over, I drive back to the ranch. The house feels different now, lighter, lived in. The cellar, once a wound in the yard, has been cleaned and repurposed. A sign above the hatch reads, Quarry Bend Historical Archive, in memory of those who stood silent and those who broke that silence. Inside, the air smells faintly of dust and film reels. Maggie labeled each canister with careful script. Tate donated the old mine maps. Carla visits every few days to help catalog. At dusk, I sit on the porch with Maggie and the cattle dog, Witness, as we've started calling him. He sprawls at my feet, ears twitching to the rhythm of the windmill. The radio hums softly on the table beside us, tuned at last to something other than static. A low song drifts through the speaker, an old country ballad about the cost of truth. Maggie leans back, eyes half closed. You staying? She asks. For a while, I say. Someone needs to keep the light on. The horizon glows pink as the sun sinks, burning itself into memory. I open Eli Crane's journal to the last page, the ink faded but legible. If the desert keeps anything, let it be witness. I close the book and whisper. It did. The wind answers, not with silence, but with song. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.